everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well out there, and today we're going to continue down the 1980s slasher road. But before we continue that journey, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. And one other thing, in the description box below, I'm going to leave a link for my TeePublic page if you're so inclined to check that out. I would greatly appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about 1980s He Knows You're Alone. Yes, this film came out August 29th of 1980. It's rated R. It's an hour and 34 minutes long, had a budget of $250,000 to $300,000, and upon release, it made 4.8 or 4.9, depending on what you check online. So it did make some bucks considering the budget involved. And this was the brainchild of some producers that produced Broadway plays, honestly. They had an investor, and they wanted to get into the movie business and start making low-budget horror films. And there was a film student who had directed a few small things, no feature-length films, Armand Mastrani, who they knew he came in to do this film. Now, all told, this film only took 4 months from writing the script to shooting the movie. Matter of fact, they shot this in 16 to 18 days, the movie itself, to edit it and get it ready to go out for release. It only took 4 months. So this was definitely a fast-paced production on this film. And we'll get into the cast right now, and we'll get into the plot. Dan Scardino plays Marvin. Dan Scardino played King Lear in this little theater group in New York City, so they were very aware of him. Armand was aware of him, so they brought him in to play this role. And he is the ex-boyfriend of Amy, our main final girl, played by Caitlin O'Haney. And he went away for a summer, and he came back, and Amy had left him and found another guy who now she's getting married to, which plays into a big part of the plot of this film. Now, in this film, we also got a couple of character actors, big character actors you've seen in many, many films over the years. James Rebin's in this film. He plays a professor. He was in Independence Day, The Game of Michael Douglas, many TV shows, and many other films. He's popped up many times over the years. Also, Paul Gleason's in this film as a detective. And Paul Gleason was in many films. Obviously, he was the principal in The Breakfast Club. He was in Trading Places. He was in Die Hard and many other films. So it's nice to see him pop up here as well. Tom Rothling plays Ray. He's the killer of this film, and we'll get into him in a second. And also, a big name in this film is Tom Hanks playing Elliot. Now, he doesn't have a huge role, but this is notable for being Tom Hanks' first film he ever did in his career. And Dana Barrow's in this film as well. She's a small role, and she's most famous for playing Audrey in National Lampoon's Vacation, the original National Lampoon's movie, Vacation movie. Now, this film has a very simple premise. There was Ray, the main killer. We see this through a flashback. He was left for another man, and his ex-fiance is marrying this other guy, and he kills her. And ever since then, he kills brides-to-be. That's his thing. And there's a detective who is going to marry that girl that left Ray. He wants to find him so badly because he killed his fiance, his soon-to-be wife, and he's doing this to other people, leaving a trail of bodies. Well, this guy sets his sights on Amy because she's about to be married, and he stalks her and kills people that aren't going to be married. He kills a guy who runs a bridal shop, and kills some of Amy's friends. And at the end, we have our final confrontation, and Ray, the killer, is taken out. But unfortunately, Amy leaves her fiance for Marvin, and on their wedding day, we get a stinger at the end that Amy's ex shows up, and we're led to believe, it stops on a freeze frame, and we're led to believe that her ex is going to start this cycle all over again, and that is He Knows You're Alone. What to like about this film? I will say I love the beginning of this film. The beginning of this film is kind of a psych out, because we're seeing these couple in a car on a lover's lane, presumably, and they're making out, and all of a sudden, the girl starts hearing noises, and the guy gets out of the car to check it out. And then we start hearing this screeching sound on the side of the car. So she gets out to try to find him. He's hanging from the tree, scraping the car, and there's a killer waiting for her, and that's based on an urban legend. But the camera pulls back, cuts to these two girls watching a movie in a movie theater. I love this fake out because you think it's part of the movie, and then it's not. It's just these two women in a movie theater watching a horror film. And the one girl, or the one woman, thinks somebody's watching her. She goes to the bathroom, she's hearing noises, she thinks somebody's watching her. And the other girl's just kind of making fun of her, blowing her off, saying, you're just scared from the movie. And before we know it, Ray, our killer, walks down the aisle and sits down right behind her. And in a moment of fright on screen, he stabs her through the seat. It penetrates her heart, and she dies, but her friend doesn't notice it first, giving Ray enough time to leave the theater before she's discovered to be passed or dead, murdered. And that's what kicks off He Knows You're Alone. It's a great opening scene. It's one of the best moments of the film. I really liked this, and from what I've read, that's where Kevin Williamson got the idea for the opening of Scream 2, is from this movie. I don't know if that's true. That could be just internet bullshit, but that's what is said, that Kevin Williamson took inspiration from this film for Scream 2, which kind of makes sense because they're very similar openings. The acting here is pretty decent. Dan Scardino is pretty good as Marvin. I like him. Even Caitlin O'Henny, she would go on to do other things over the years, and she's good here as Amy, our final girl. Some of her friends aren't bad. They're kind of forgettable. They're just there for cannon fodder to be slaughtered at some point. It's nice to see Paul Gleason and that show up. Overall, the kills aren't overly bloody. They really aren't. They're done off screen. You see slashing, but you don't see much. There's some blood, and you see some aftermath. There's one particular cool aftermath where her friend's sleeping over because by this point, Amy's been seeing Ray around town, and she's kind of freaked out. So her friend cancels her date with Elliot, Tom Hanks' character, and stays behind to hang out with her. Well, Amy leaves to run her little sister or niece, I don't know who she is, to this sleepover. She comes back to find her friend's head in her fish tank. And that's a pretty cool scene as well. And I think the ending, with the cop in pursuit of that, I think the ending's pretty good, but they fumble it right at the goal line. There's a moment where the killer gets shot, but he's still in pursuit of Amy. He already dispatched to the cop. And Marvin and Amy run out to the other police, and the police go in, but we never see what happens to Ray, if he's dead, is he alive. We don't know that. We just cut right to Amy's wedding, and then we get that final stinger of her ex showing up and freeze frames, and that's it. So the ending, I think, fumbles it a little bit right at the goal line, unfortunately. Is this the greatest slasher film? No, it's not. There's a lot of stalking. They're trying to build suspense here. They're going for more suspense than the typical slasher, especially this time. You had Friday the 13th out at the time, and Prom Night's not overly gory, and neither is Terror Train, but you had Friday the 13th, which was pretty gory for at the time, and they don't really go for the gore here. I mean, yeah, you see the severed head, you see some blood and that stuff, but it's not overly violent, really, here. The killer, played by Tom Rothling, he's pretty good. He looks creepy. He has like these crazy eyes. I can see why they hired him. And this is one of those films, we talked about this with Christmas Evil, or New Year's Evil, where you see the killer's face pretty much from the get-go. I mean, it's right at the beginning of the film, you see his face, and you see it a lot throughout the film. He never wears a mask. He just looks batshit crazy. So it's one of those films early on in the slasher, boom, where they weren't afraid just to show the killer's face. And he never wears a mask here. Never. Not once in the film does he ever wear a mask. You see it throughout the film. Some of the camera work's not bad by Armin Mastrani. There's a couple cool shots. There's a shot where Amy's in the ice cream parlor, and she's standing there talking to the cash register, or the person that's taking her order. And she's standing there, and she kind of leans back, and the camera's locked off over here facing the street. And you don't see nothing until she leans back, and you see Ray standing outside. And then you see her come. She's talking to the guy with the ice cream cone, comes to talk to her. She leans forward again. The camera's still locked here. It doesn't move. And then she leans back a little bit as the ice cream counter fender goes away, and he's gone. I thought there's some cool camera shots throughout the film. It's not that it's shot greatly or anything, but there is some cool, inventive little things in the movie that I did appreciate and I picked up on. Is this the greatest slasher film? No, but it's an enjoyable experience. There's some cool scenes. I like, again, the beginning is probably my favorite of the whole film. I love that beginning. I love stuff that takes place in a movie theater, and that really does, it is really well done, actually. Is there any negatives? Yeah, I think there's, even though it's only 94 minutes, there's a little, and this is going to be funny because it's a slasher film, there's a little too much stalking that goes on for way too long with no payoff. It's just going on and on and on. And this could probably have used a little bit more of an uptick in violence than there actually is. A little bit more gore, a little bit more carnage candy. There's not a whole lot of that here. And I think this movie could have benefited from a little bit more carnage candy. But for what we got, it's a perfectly enjoyable early 80s slasher film. This movie was all shot in Staten Island, as I said. Elliot, Tom Hanks' character, was actually supposed to be killed in the original script, but he was so likable and everybody that the director decided not. They didn't even shoot the scenes where he got killed. He kind of disappears. He has a couple scenes and he disappears and he never reappears in the movie. And that's why they didn't want to kill him off, because he was so likable. Originally, this movie was called Blood Wedding, or The Uninvited, but the studio, this was independently produced, but MGM picked it up for release, and they thought He Knows You're Alone was a better title. And you could buy this from Scream Factory. I think it's on Amazon right now for $15 if you're interested in it. It actually looks pretty good. It's a 2K scan. I used to have this on DVD, so it looks way better than it ever did before. And there's some good special features on it. There's an interview with the director. There's an interview with Dan Scardinia's on here. And there's a few other interviews. There's actually quite a bit of special features on here for a movie that wasn't a huge hit, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So if you're interested in it, it is available on Amazon for about $15. At the end of the day, this is a perfectly fine slasher film. This is right after Halloween, where everybody was churning them out like crazy because of the popularity of Halloween. And this basically followed that model with the low budget, shot pretty quick, and it didn't make as much money, but it did make a little bit of a profit. But at the end of the day, what I would rate He Knows You're Alone is 6.5 out of 10. 6.5 out of 10 for He Knows You're Alone. Have you ever seen this one? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back with some more slasher reviews and other reviews. I want to do Live and Die in LA and several other films. Blue Steel. I got some thrillers coming out. Plus with new movies, I plan seeing The Beekeeper coming up. I can't wait to see that one. Directed by David Ayer and starring Jason Statham. And I want to give a quick shout out to my good buddy Brandon. Brandon, I love you, buddy. He sent me these for Christmas, and I love them. I greatly appreciate it, Brandon. You're a good friend, and yeah, Brandon's awesome. If you get a chance, follow him over at Letterboxd. But that's it for this review. I'll be back soon. Until next time, bye.